Hello, and welcome to Property Matters, a weekly look at all matters property designed to be of interest to anyone who has an interest in property. And Property Matters is supported by Fairview International Property Consultancy and Town and Country Property Auctions London. Each week, we focus on the news that concerns property, and this week, with interest rates and also COP26, it's been a big week for property in the news. So, we've got plenty to discuss as always. If you'd like to comment, put your comments in the section below where you're watching us today. And of course, don't forget to like and subscribe and all that good stuff so you get notified when we go live, which won't always necessarily be on a Sunday, but more about that very shortly. And you can email us at any time, propertymatterstv@gmail.com. Joining us as always for Property Matters on a Sunday morning is my property specialist. It is, of course, Joshi. Joe, good morning.
Good morning, Paul. An interesting week actually in the news this week, and quite a contradictory one in my opinion. Not that I'm a very contradicting person, but with the amount of smoke, with rockets and launchers and fireworks, thunder. I mean, we've had it all this week. From Diwali to Guy
Yeah.
Fawkes Night and so forth, and then of course COPs week that tells us that we've got to reduce our emission and so forth. I think we actually uploaded and increased that amount over the last 2 days. So I think our figures are definitely wrong. And then considering that the Prime Minister had to take a jet plane back, considering he's supposed to be telling everybody that we've got to reduce the carbons. So I mean, of course, as you know, it's my favorite subject because I just think it's just not going to go in the direction that everybody would like it to go, with all those billions and billions of pounds that everybody wants to spend on trying to reshape the world. I agree it has to be done, but I just don't think it's going to be done as fast as everybody thinks it's going to happen. But this week was a good week for that, to show that we have the huge COPs, a summit going on in Glasgow, and then in the same week we absolutely annihilate the skies with all of the emissions that we're saying we don't want to actually reduce, with the fireworks and so forth. So yeah, plenty to chat about.
Indeed, indeed. Yes, it does seem rather ironic, doesn't it? But perhaps we'll have to cancel Firework Night and cancel Diwali. I can't see that happening. Not in our lifetimes anyway. Let's just have a look at, because we did allude early on today, Joe, about something special happening, and we hinted about it last week, and now we can reveal everything. And that is that Property Matters is going to come from a live location. Next week, isn't it? Actually, it's the week after this. It's Monday, the 15th of November, at the Asian Jewish Business Networking Group meeting. Do you want to tell us a little bit about your thoughts on that? It's going to be exciting.
Yeah, it's very exciting, Paul. A new one and a first for both of us, and of course for Property Matters. Property Matters, as you know to our viewers, is now a year old. And every Sunday we've been gracing ourselves into your living rooms or on your smartphones just to be annoying, and you know that we're going to be there like a bad penny. So we're now going to do a live program from our stand at Lord's Cricket Ground, world famous cricket ground, where the Asian Business Jewish Network is being done. It's a big networking event, and looking forward to it. And hopefully we will have live to your screens some views from not just me week in, week out, but many others that will grace our screens as we go along. And I think it's a really exciting opportunity and a great milestone. And you never know, if it really good and does well, we might be in your living room interviewing you about your views on property. So watch this
Yes.
space. You never know.
Yeah. Fingers crossed the technology will all work and we can do a remote broadcast. It'll be very exciting to give that a go. And Russell Bahar, who organises this event, of course, is no stranger. He's been on Property Matters before. And as you can imagine, in the week leading up to his big event, he's pretty hard to get hold of. But I did manage to track him down earlier in the week. And this is the conversation we had for Property Matters. So joining us now on Property Matters is Russell Bahar, who is the director and founder of the Asian Jewish Business Network, the only business networking group bringing Jewish and Asian business leaders together. Now, Russell, this is a revolutionary group. It's something that you started how many years ago now?
Well, funny enough, yesterday was 2 years to the day that our first event actually happened at Lord's Cricket Ground. But we launched it in April 2019. So let's say 2.5 years ago.
So obviously, we're going to be talking about yet another fantastic event that you're going to be having in the coming week. Tell us a little bit about the network itself more broadly and what it's supposed to achieve.
We put it's a story that I love to tell, and I can go for hours. But the story generally was for us to put on a networking event for senior professionals, and we all know that networking is just a very saturated market. It's everywhere you look. It's online, it's offline, it's everywhere. But what I always found was that there was never a networking group with the professionals, with the MDs, the CEOs, the directors from the corporate SME world. And that's what I wanted to create. But I still felt that we needed to create something a lot more niche. And that's where, Justin and I decided that, let's put together our heads and came up with the idea about bringing the Jewish community, very powerful community in business, and the Asian community, again, another very, very powerful business community together. Two communities that punch way above their weight. And it's just worked. It's grown organically. It's from our first event leading into a members club with 90 company members to many other things that are doing a magazine, loads and loads of stuff. And we've got an event which I'm sure we'll talk about in a second. But we've got the next event on the 15th of November back at Lord's. Over 400 professionals. That will be our last year at Lord's. And the reasons why is because we've outgrown it. We need to expand. And next year, at the end of October next year, we have got something very, 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 very big planned for our communities, our business leaders, and our members.
So to sum up then, really, it's a networking group where people meet each other in a social environment when you have your events. And then from those conversations and that networking, business develops naturally, as it does in many networking groups.
Yeah, I think, look, we've all shown that we need to create a wider connection with our contacts that we've got. And a lot of people, the right way of doing networking is to build a relationship. Yeah, it's like anything. It's building a foundation. It's no difference if you're in a relationship. You've got to get to know them to build a foundation, and so on and so forth. And that's exactly the same within the business side as well. If people expect to go into any network, anywhere that they go, expect to walk away that day, there and then getting business, don't turn up. Don't come. Come to build relationships. And we've done that. We've done that with ourselves. We've seen other people do it. We've seen you guys build from some fantastic relationships with other people. And that's what it's all about. It starts with a relationship.
Just give me an idea of some of the professions that are sort of dominant in the group.
So we've got a mix, but if we're going to talk the main ones, law firms, chartered accountants, wealth managers, bridge lenders, financial advisors, banks. I think you name it, we've got them. Mortgage advisors, property developers, property estate agencies, commercial, residential. We literally really do have every single category, I think, that you can possibly think of.
And that's where Property Matters comes in, because we're going to be broadcasting and streaming a show live on Thursday, which we're delighted to be doing. Which is going to be a very interesting hour of content. Just tell us a little bit more about the event. It is Thursday, the 15th of November, 10 till 3.
Monday the 15th. Monday the 15th.
Monday the 15th.
Monday the 15th. No, Monday the 15th of November, back at Lord's. It starts at 10 a.m. till 3 p.m. It's a full day of networking, guys. So it's one of those things where you would turn up. You don't have to start standing up and telling who you are, what you do. You'll come along. Obviously, you need to purchase a ticket. So if you want to get a ticket, It's www.ajbn.co.uk. You get a ticket, and on the day you arrive, give your details. Then we will give you your lanyard, and on the day you'll go around and network. You have some coffees, some soft drinks, tea, food, whatever it is that you want, and you'll be able to network with people. There'll be a lot of people that will know each other. So good. It's good. It's a good environment to say hello to some familiar faces and also some new faces as well. And the one thing that we've all noticed when we've done this is that with LinkedIn, increasing by the day, especially during the lockdowns, LinkedIn was like a Bible for people, and it was my Bible. When you walk into a room, you'll be able to put a face to the name, and that's what generally over the last 18 months people have missed. Events are starting to come back. It's becoming refreshing. It's exciting. I'm going to be quite careful with general events between now and the event, although I am going to an event this evening. But generally, it's all about getting back into the room, getting connected with people, and it would just be a really day. You know what I say to people? It's almost like exchanging a business card over a canapé. That's what it's like.
And the event in 2019 was an outstanding success. 2020 must have been a bit difficult and a bit hard for you.
Look, 2019, it was our first launch. 428 people on that day. A lineup of some really heavyweight speakers. 2020, look, I think for everybody, it hurt. What I will say is that on the day of our event in 2019, everybody was coming over to me saying, Russ, what's happening next? Russ, when's the next event? Russ. And I didn't have a clue what was next. All I said to people was, watch this space, something's coming. And we launched the networking members club, the AJBN members club in London. And up until March of last year, we had about 28 companies launched and registered as members. COVID came in, disrupted the world. What we decided to do was continue. I had a business plan. We had a plan of what we wanted to achieve. So we continued to grow it online with, like everyone else, with Zoom on a monthly basis. And we grew and we grew and we grew. And now, as of today, although we've been able to get back in a room, we have 90 company members who have signed up. We released a magazine in April with a distribution of 3,500 copies of the magazine. We haven't stopped. If anything, we've just organically grown, and we've become a need and a must for people in their business, and that's really, really good. And what the funny thing was, that didn't even cross my mind in 2019. I have a business. I have a consultancy firm. That wasn't what we wanted to do, but it's just grown and it's been fantastic. And you know what? I say this all the time to people. We wouldn't be where we are now. We wouldn't be where we are now without the support from our members, our sponsors, someone like Axiom Stone, headline sponsors, or In Touch Now, MFS, whoever it is, Sterling Professional. We wouldn't be where we are now if it wasn't the support from them. And it's been amazing. It's been an incredible journey, a really incredible journey.
Well, we're very much looking forward to the day. Just remind us of the date so there's no confusion, would you, Russell?
15th of November is a Monday. And if anyone wants to buy tickets, they can. Tickets lines will close next Friday. So the website is www.ajbn.co.uk. It's £55. But you know what? It's probably one of the best investments that you'll make.
Thanks to Russell for that, and we'll look forward to seeing everyone on Monday, the 15th of November, live, fingers crossed, from Lord's Cricket Ground. So back into the news, Joe. We said it was a dynamic week, and of course, the Bank of England certainly hit the headlines by not change in the interest rate from the record low of 0.1%. And the reason they gave is because they weren't quite sure why inflation was rising, which everyone said, well, if you don't, how the hell do the rest of us know? That's the fact of it. But they are very close to doing it, and it was a close call, of course. And we are on historic rates in their 327-year history. It's never been lower. They've hinted it's either going to be December or February. Why it wouldn't be January, I don't know. But anyway, December or February is what they say, likely. So that's going to have an implication for some borrowers. But of course, many, I think it's 80%, I think we recall from a previous week, are actually on fixed rates of 5 years anyway. So the impact will be delayed somewhat.
Yeah, it's an interesting analysis of why they think that inflation is going on. In my opinion, Paul, that's a bit of a cop-out. They've kind of just looked at the calendar and realized that with everybody now wanting to shop for Christmas, the best thing to do is not to put up the rates. Otherwise, it will put the brakes on the retail sector over Christmas. And the reason why it's not January is because, of course, as you know, historically, January sales. So it will be February that they will probably bring that in just in time and in line for the new year of the new events, because most of the events of this year finish during the period of January. People are still away. Holiday companies, the hospitality industry that has suffered so badly over the last 2 years, if they were to put up the rate, not that it would probably veer a lot of people away, because it's a festive season and people want to do that, but it will certainly make them maybe stop and think of the things that may not want or choose to maybe leave just in case they were. So I think that's a lame excuse by the Bank of England to say that we don't know why the rate of inflation is going up. That's because the whole lead up to potentially putting the rates up was very high. And then they just kind of realized that it was the wrong time, and they've decided that they'll just hold back. Now, actually, that equally, in my mind, is a great window of opportunity for the home owners. Those that have had fixed rate mortgages or have variable rate mortgages, this is your last window call for you to talk to your lenders, your banks, your building societies, and so forth, and see if you can either fix or arrange a facility that allows you to have that over the next 3 to 5 years at the current rate or the lowest possible rate. Because obviously, even if it's going up by a 0.25% leading up to 1%, and potentially there's talk about anything between 1% and 3%, that will make a significant amount. But if you go and talk to your lenders now, you will, before they do that, you should be able to arrange a slightly longer term fixed rate, which will get you through that time. And I think it's very, very crucial. So, I always think there's a cloud behind every silver lining, and this one is that they've decided to put the brakes on till probably February. I don't think it will be any time before that. And this is your window as homeowners to get onto your building societies and banks and say, this is, what can you fix our rate for over the next 3 to 5 years? And theoretically, you will make a saving of the increase if you fix it now. And they'll want to know that, because they'll think, well, okay, that's a good move on our customers. We know that money is coming in fixed for the next 3 to 5 years. So, it could be a happy ending for all if you act on that now. Of course, you heard it here at Property Matters first by me. And so do take some heed of that. But the Bank of England will eventually put up their rate. It's been long coming. We know it's going to happen, and all of a sudden there's a sort of gasp of deep breath here, and it's purely because of the timing. So just imagine that Santa has brought you a little early gift here.
It's interesting to look at the figures, because 1/5 of all borrowing is on variable rate. So that's right, 80% are on fixed, 1/5, 20% is on variable. So they will, as soon as the rates go up, those people on variable will see the rise imminently. What's interesting to note is that some of the building societies and banks have already put their rates up to smooth the impact rather than one big hike, perhaps. But it's a bit naughty to start putting rates up now when they haven't been increased from the Bank of England. But they also point out that it's quite important to remember that a mortgage offer is valid for 6 months. So if you're looking to move in the next 6 months, get a mortgage offer in now before rates go up.
Absolutely. Look, everything has a timing situation, and we've had a fairly comfortable time with the Bank of England's rate being as low as it is, which is an all-time record low. It's what comes down is going to go up. It's going to happen, and it's just that you need to be prepared and take this window of opportunity to prepare yourselves in every eventuality, and either by fixing the rates and going forward, or seeing that the easing of that, as Paul said, some of these lenders have already started to do that, or better still, get your surveys done and get your mortgage offers out on anything that you're looking to buy, because at least that will stand there. Now, the sooner you do that, the better it would be. And again, a fixed rate will be offered on those mortgage offers. So houses are still the best form of investment, the safest form of investment, and you should still go out there and buy.
Indeed. So we mentioned COP26 at the beginning of the programme today, and there is a story, of course, that's cashing in on that story, although, of course, it doesn't tell a good story. It doesn't make for great reading, because it's interesting to note that most UK homes are way below what's needed to start to improve the climate. So basically, it's estimated that the residential housing sector is responsible for 1/5 of all the UK's CO2 emissions, the majority of which comes from heating homes. And we have the EPC certificates, which we've discussed before, which were introduced in 2008, and yet many homes still rank really poorly, with 30% of those on a E, F or G EPC rating. And it's estimated that 330 billion is needed to implement all of the energy efficiency improvements that the UK needs to meet its target of everything being level C by 2035. That's 330 billion for that. And the problem that there is, Joe, is that rates are now rising again. So between 2004 and 2017, CO2 emissions from our properties fell by 26%, but they've risen again by 9% between 2014 and 2020. So it's getting worse. We now have 67.7 metric tons of CO2 in the environment from our homes. It's so pretty. When they say they want to be level C by 2035, it's like they're building targets. They're never going to hit them.
Well, I mean, obviously, some of that contribution of the 9% was actually done this last week, over the last 3 days.
All the hot air.
Plenty of hot air going up with lots of fireworks and so forth. I think, just going back to the story, the problem with this is, Paul, that the EPC was introduced in 2008, and prior to that, there was this amazing new thing called the Home Buyers Pack. I don't know if you ever remember.
Yes.
This thing was introduced, and so much money, so much time was spent on this, created so much disruption, and actually, in all honesty, hand on my heart, I cannot remember one person walking into our office, even in 2007, 2008, 2009, whenever that thing was around, walking in and saying, "Could I please sit down and have a copy of the home buyers report that tells me all the things that are wrong with this house?" There was a zero interest in that. That interest of that job was only for the government to tick a box to say, "Oh, we've done this in order to commit and tell the commitment that we are reducing the emissions, and this is what we're going to do to our houses, and this is what we're going to do to our property." There is not a man that is actually in this land that sat down and adhered to any of that at all. It's a complete farce, and that's the problem. To be honest with you, it's not sold right. It has nothing to do with that. No one wants to buy into it, And the reason for it, Paul, is very simple. It's just another cog in the system that clogs up the system. So I'll say that it's another cog in the system that clogs up the system. When people want to buy, they want to move on, they want to get going on these things. And this is a creation that was put in and said, okay, let's do this. And all it did is delay the whole process and create the frustration. And out of that frustration and that delay, people just put it aside and say, oh, to hell with that. I'm not really interested in reading what he's got to say. I want to buy the house. I've got a mortgage offer. I want to move by XYZ date, and I'm just going to get on it. Then, of course, they made this pledge to themselves that when we get there, we will look at this and we'll deal with it. Well, actually, in reality, that does never happen. It's just another file that's gone into the file box, into the house file, house folder with the completion certificate, and say it's there. That's it. That's all that ever happened. Ask anyone anywhere, and I'm pretty certain that we'll get some views on the program. No one ever looked at it. They're never going to get that right, and that's why they're never going to get this. UK houses are obviously of the older character, the ones that are built pre-war or whatever, were not designed that way. And people like history in the United Kingdom. We like the character, and we like all of those things that we want in our homes. And it's going to be a challenge. There are other ways to deal with this, I'm pretty certain. But they're not going to listen to people like me. They're just going to get some bod out there who conjures up another system, another stealth tact, should I call it, of how we can make a bit more money. And that's what it's going to be. But the reality is the true version is not going to get done. And it can be done. It can be done. You can, sell that idea to homeowners, and homeowners can buy into it.
Well, I don't have a graph, Joe, but I do have statistics. As you might expect, 30% of homes built before the war have an E certificate. And if you go pre-1900, it's 47%. So half the homes built before 1900 have an E or less certificate. So there's a lot of work to do. And they highlight the fact that the grant schemes are very limited in their support, and there's radical intervention required if there's going to be any move on this, because the figures just don't stack up, Joe. So to move your home from an E to a C is costing you about £10,000, 9,800, and to move from an F to a B is a whopping 47,600 quid. Now, the trouble is that those improvements aren't seen in the end selling price, so there's just no incentive in terms of return.
Exactly, and that's the point. There is no incentive, and that's why I said there are ways to do this. Let me just share with you my thoughts on something that's more recent and right in our face, literally over the last 2 years. We have had a pandemic. It's been almost like a silent World War III. It's created so many deaths, so many losses of families, so many loved ones gone. So much has happened. And the problem with us as human beings is unless the government tells us to do something, we don't do it. So, here we are with the pandemic figures rising again. You'd think it's common sense that everybody would say, okay, you know what, I should wear a mask, and I should still sanitize, I should do that. Until, Boris stands outside number 10 and says, as of this day, I'm telling you, you all got to wear masks. No one wants to do it. And that's the same situation that happens with the CO2 and emissions. Until and when the government turns around and says, we're not going to give you grants, we're going to allocate XYZ amount of money, and you've got to book an appointment, just like you've got to get your jab done. They've got to direct it, and we're going to come round and we're going to actually insulate your house. Every one of your roofs have got to be insulated by a government approved person, and the government will pay them, and you don't have to do anything. I promise you, right, for our reputation on Property Matters, the queue will be huge, right, because it's going to be done for them. And that's the quickest and the easiest way, in my book, that you can actually start to bring this CO2 down, and the heating that is heating the climate coming out people's roofs, for starters, to come down. Because people did, we had these schemes, Paul. They used to give us grants for having the homes insulated. Yeah. A company would come along and they'll spray this paper, rubbish, whatever it was, in your thing, which is a huge nuisance. But they would claim the money from the council, and the council would pay them, and so forth and so forth. All of that all went by the wayside because, unfortunately, there were some few good people that did that, but there was a lot of bad people that just milked them, took the money, and actually never did the job. And so who else loses? The homeowners lose out, the governments lose out, and the people in the middle, obviously, they pick up their money and don't do the job. So it's really a difficult one for them to actually get into. But I personally think that they've got to drive it. And the reason I say that is look what's just happened right in front of us. 2 years. Now the figures are rising in the pandemic, and it's been dodgy. No one's saying, actually, you know what? Let's just be sensible here, and we all go into the supermarkets, the shops, just as we used to, and reduce the opportunity of having to spread the virus and wear a mask. No chance. Until Boris gets on that stand and says to them, as of Monday, the such and such, you've got to wear a mask or you're going to be in trouble. All of a sudden, everybody will start wearing masks then. And that's the society we live in, which is unfortunate. But all the good things we want to do for our future, for our protection of our children, the investment for our homes, etc., we are led by what somebody tells us to do and not do it because we think it's the right thing to do. That's just my view.
I can see a couple of problems on the horizon. Just look at the rental market for a moment. So by the time we get to the point where you're going to have an energy certificate C, those are small-time private or affordable landlords. They're going to be forced to do up their properties. They're not going to do that because the costs don't weigh up or don't add up. And therefore, in terms of return, they're going to redesign their portfolios, and those properties are going to come out of the rental sector and probably stay in the state they're in. And secondly, also, those people who own their homes outright, they're going to be able to afford to do this. There's 10 million homes in the UK owned outright, which has increased 1.6 million in just the last 10 years. And these homes that are owned outright are older, typically less energy efficient, and they often can change hands quite infrequently rather. So there's going to be a real strain on the private owner who owns a home outright because they're going to have to bring their home up to scratch. It's going to be a massive cost there. And also, more importantly, perhaps the rental market, where the landlords are just going to offload those properties that provide them with headaches.
Well, let's look at that for a minute. I mean, you've got the private and the 30% of the homes that are pre-1900s, pre-war. In a number of 100 to naught, 80%, 75, 80% must be mortgaged up. There must be a lesser amount that are actually owned and create that problem of emission. So let's just take that as a rule of thumb for the minute. I'm sure that figure is probably right or wrong. I don't know. You'll come back with that in a minute. But if every lender that was lending and had a mortgage on those properties was to able to turn around, the government said, right, that we're not going to give the money to the people, we're not going to give the money to such. We are saying to you that you will increase that mortgage by £5,000 over that period of 25 or 20 years that is there, and we're going to actually go out there and insulate and make sure that every home that has a mortgage has, let's say that's 75, let's even say it's 50%, Paul. That's 50% of the properties that have got mortgages on them that can be covered very easily and less pain. The reason why people don't do it is because, who's going to find £5,000 to insulate their house? Like you just said, if there's a guy who's renting a flat out and he's got to spend 10 grand to actually bring it up to a certain standard, which is like the basic standard of C, for argument's sake, and he's got to decide whether he spends £10,000 on doing that, or he has £10,000 of income in order to protect his life, and because that's bringing a livelihood, an income for his family. You know where he's going to do. He's not going to spend the money to do it up. He's going to look after his family. But at the same time, if the same person was given an opportunity by his lender to say, we're going to add £5,000 to yours over the term of your remaining period, so that's going to be another maybe a couple of hundred, maybe £50 a month. That's going to cost you more over that period. But we are going to send in somebody who's going to absolutely bring your house up to scratch very easily, very quickly, and we're going to meet our target, and you're going to do good for the environment, and you're going to do for the good for the future of children. I can't imagine somebody arguing about 50 quid, but I can see why somebody wouldn't do that. So what I'm saying is there are ways that they could deal with this. It
Mm.
may not be radical, but I think a lot of people will have an uptake on that sort of thing and think, you know what, I'd rather pay 50 quid and be protected. They'll save that money on their bills each
Yes.
month.
Yes, that's true.
You know, so all of that heating of the house and so forth, they'll save that on that. So it's just about how it can be done. I know that that can be done. You know why I know that can be done, Paul? Is because if the government can stump up billions of pounds during the pandemic and pay 80% furlough and give all sorts of other opportunities, this is a small fry by comparison. And they're going to get their money back here pretty much because it's just going to come out in the mortgage. So if the Chancellor wants to sort of move over and let me have that job, I'll sort it out for him.
And on the same tack, seeing as it's COP26 week this week, have you seen that this week the number of homes that list on Rightmove a electric car charging point has risen 541% in a year, Joe? So a 500+% increase in the number of homes with a charging point on Rightmove, which is an interesting development. And I can see that in the same way that properties or houses versus flats have been popular in the lockdown period, I can see houses with a drive where you could put one of these sockets in the next 15, 20 years are going to be at a premium, and houses with no drive, no one's going to be interested because where are you going to charge your car?
Well, I suppose what they're going to have to do is put a little meter on every lamppost in the street, and put a charging point so that they can actually plug in their cars into the central lamppost in their street, which may be solar powered, with the top of the thing. So we're going green here, Paul. I'm buying into this. Can you see that? So each
You're making it up.
each lamppost will have a panel at the top of it, which will be obviously solar driven to create and generate the electric. And at the bottom of it, we'll have a power point, which you can plug your car into, which of course will be electric as well. And we're on a win-win situation. I'm telling you, I'm into this. I've bought this deal now, and we're gonna do this. And so yes, if every home cannot have a drive or a garage, make sure you plug into a lamppost near you.
It's going to be, I genuinely think that the next 30, 40, 50 years are going to radically change society because of so many things, not just technological, but obviously the impact of lockdown and the pandemic have been are way more significant than we currently imagine or perceive, and I can see that I don't even know how they would begin to solve the problem of charging cars at home because the power needed is going to be phenomenal. The doing it without wires, they're going to have some kind of wireless charging. But then you think, well, hang on a minute, we've got transmitters in the radio transmitters, which if you and power cables, which if you live too near them, they reckon can cause cancer. So who knows what the future holds? But I can see that in 50 years, probably when we're both gone, it's going to be a radically different life to what it is now. And probably for the better in the long run, because obviously we do need to do something about what's been going on with the climate.
No, I agree, and I think that's very important to see. And yes, in 50 years' time, the pair of us probably won't be around. But the point is that there are solutions. I just don't think that they're actually feeding them in the right direction. And more than anything else, I don't think they're selling them to the people in a positive way, in order to give them the wish and the want to actually say, okay, I want to do this. There's nothing that makes somebody, want to go out and shop for apart from taxation. So they're offering a good taxation. Even that is being changed. If you're going to go and buy a Lexus car on a company policy or something, you're entitled to loads of tax-free time, which is great. But I think they could utilize that in a much, much different way, Paul. I just think that there is room to do this, but it has to be driven by the powers to be. Because I don't think individuals will ever. It's always a choice, isn't it? Just imagine, you've got your shopping list, and you've got £100 to shop, and there's something you want and there's something you don't want. What are you going to leave? You're going to leave the one that you don't want and take the one you want, because that's what's more important. So the question here is, what's important? Is it important to actually sit there and worry about the environment and the CO2, or do I just turn around and say, well, actually, I need to heat my house, feed my children? What's going to take the priority? So this part of it, if they want to reach the targets set out and spewed out in the COPs this last week, then I think they've got to take the bull by the horn and actually deal with it themselves, just as the government has had to do throughout the pandemic. And it's proven that by taking control, they did that. Look what happened at the beginning. When they didn't take control at the beginning, the numbers escalated, primarily because nobody knew how to deal with it. And then all of a sudden they did take control. And now everybody's had their vaccines, they get their boosters, there's sort of normality of life and whatever it is. Yes, there's going to be people that turn around and say, oh, I don't like it, I don't agree with it, I think it's all a farce. But you know what? If you're standing at the airport terminal and want to get on that flight, and the guy says to you, I'm sorry, you haven't been double vaccinated, you can't get on, you're going to go and get double vaccinated pretty quickly. And that's the sort of thing that will happen here. If you turn around and say, I can't sell my house, it's going to be reduced in price by £50,000 because you haven't managed to take up the government scheme to turn around and insulate it properly, you're going to have it done pretty fast. So I think it can be driven.
And finale this week is Property of the Week, which unusually we normally feature houses that have been that are up for sale, but this is actually sold this week. So congratulations on moving this one on. But it does fit in with our ecological theme today. This is Oakington Avenue. Just tell me about this wonderful concept building here.
Well, yeah, Oakington Avenue is a eco-friendly house. Quite coincidentally, in our program this week, and so it's designed on solar paneling, the heating, the double glazing, the inside, the whole thing that is put in there is based on the fact that it is going to reduce carbon and of course the natural heating and sensors. So very modern, very state-of-the-art type of property, about 2,500 square foot. Some of it is going to be not underground, but let's say it's a lower ground, so you can see that it would be dug up a little bit so that it creates the ground. And then and a floor is 3 bedrooms with 3 ensuite master rooms, so pretty funky, modern looking property. Of course, this happens to be very close to the Metropolitan line near Amersham, Chalfont, little Chalfont actually, and you can see the railway line just there at the bottom of it. But this is what happens about finding particular plots in order to build new homes and new eco-friendly homes. But someone has already bought into the idea and has bought it and planned to build that house. And actually what we might do, Paul, and as we are going to be able to go remotely, we might actually join them on this journey and have it pictured and videoed as they progress that through. I will talk to the owners and see if they will participate in a program with us, and not just Property Matters now, but home improvements and anything else that we can turn our hand to.
Not sure on the roof tiles though, Joe.
No, that's to give you an au naturel look.
Lovely. That's an fascinating property, and and as you say, it's going to be an interesting journey as they build it, because obviously it's just a plot of land at the moment, but presumably there are plans and planning permission in place for that to be built.
Yeah, I think you're going to enjoy filming this. Actually, I think I'm gonna bring us in on this from state one, and join this whole ecological journey that we are now to commence on, and show how new homes can be built in order to reduce the carbon footprint going forward, and what costs are included and how it's done. I think Property Matters will be there right at the beginning of it all.
We'll have Grand Designs knocking on our door saying that we've taken their idea.
No. We've taken our own idea. They'll knock on our door wanting our idea.
So that brings us to the end of our show this week, Joe. We'll be back, of course, next Sunday, and then also the following day on the Monday the 15th, just as a quick reminder for everybody as we finish up today, that we will be at the Asian Jewish Business Networking event at Lord's Cricket Ground on Monday the 15th of November. The event is on until 3 o'clock across the day, but we will do an hour's broadcast from there at some point during the day. We haven't even thought about what time we should do it, have we yet, Joe?
No, well, I'm sure sort of around about midday, when just after lunch, when the people come in, we'll see what happens for the day.
We'll advertise it when we've worked it all out.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's it for this week, Joe. Thank you so much, as always, for your interesting comments and thoughts on property matters. We're back, of course, next week at the same time, 10 o'clock.